Hello, movie nerds, and welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, the podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This is the new television series, the reboot, I want to say, of Percy Jackson that Disney Plus has put out. I think there is only one episode out right now. I have watched that one episode, and I have some thoughts. So let's just jump into it. Now, I am not extremely familiar with the book series. Like, I didn't really read the book series. I think it came out kind of when I was a little bit beyond the demographic that it was geared towards. I was reading some different stuff by that time, but I was interested in the movies when those came out. And I think because of the way that they cast those films, they had aged up Percy Jackson from the book series. And I think that the movies kind of walked a very fine line between what would still be enjoyable to adults and what would be entertaining or interesting for kids as well. So it kind of was of two worlds, I guess. But I don't remember the Percy Jackson movies doing that well as far as like really catching an audience and for them to like continue doing those films. I would say that Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the new television series, definitely is following the books more accurately. They have cast a kid this time instead of Logan Lerman, who was a little bit older, I think, at the time that he played Percy Jackson. And I will say, I think it's pretty self-evident just from the first episode that this show is geared for kids. I don't think that they had planned for this one to be for adults in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't walk the line the way that the other ones did. I think that this one is just geared towards young adult and teen, maybe middle school age children that are around the age of Percy Jackson. I will say I think that the show is fine. Like, I don't think that there is anything particularly wrong with it. I think they did a good job as far as like melding the CGI elements of Percy Jackson and the real world. Like, it doesn't look fantastic, but it doesn't look terrible. So if you are familiar with Percy Jackson, you know, he is a demigod. This is in the Greek god realm. So we get all of the sort of creatures and stuff that come out of Greek mythology. The Minotaur, I think, is the first creature that we are seeing in the first episode. And of course, it's all CGI. So I would expect this show to be heavily leaning CGI. They did not go practical effects with this one. So it's not like a person with makeup on. It is, in fact, CGI for pretty much all of the extra stuff, like the godly type stuff that is in Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This one, for me, though, just speaking from a personal sort of space, this is not a television series that I am going to continue watching because, like I mentioned, it is very kid leaning. So I am not necessarily interested in watching a 12-year-old like fight Greek gods or Greek, monsters or anything of that nature. Especially because, in my opinion, this kid, he's like a scrawny little 12-year-old, which I know works perfectly well with the book series, and it is accurate to the book series. But as an adult, like if I was a kid, this would probably be a hoot, but as an adult looking at this kid, I'm like, there's no way that he could fight anything, like the fact that he gets bullied by a girl that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? like there's nothing about him, even if he had demigod powers, which in the first episode, he doesn't have them. Like, he hasn't learned much about it, but he still does defeat a creature that I think that there is no way in hell he would have gotten the better of in any way, shape, or form. So it's just one of those things where I think if you are kind of above a certain age demographic, it might not be as enjoyable. But I think if this is something that you read when you were a kid. Now you have kids. You want to get your kids into Percy Jackson. I think Percy Jackson and the Olympians is going to be a great way to do that. I think it will be definitely geared towards your kids. I think it'll be interesting for kids to watch. I think they'll definitely, enjoy what Disney is offering here. And I think you can get your kids into the book series as well based off of this television show. But if you are like an adult, let's say, who read the books, I don't know if more than like a nostalgia type thing, you are going to be terribly interested in this television show. But I could be wrong. You guys are going to have to let me know if you do watch it and you were a fan of the Percy Jackson books. I was never really a fan of the books. So this isn't something that like I'm terribly interested in or gung-ho about. I did enjoy the original movies with Logan Lerman in it, and I thought that those were fine. I don't remember them being like fantastic or anything, and it certainly isn't like a couple of movies that I've gone back and watched again at all, but I remember thinking that they were okay when they came out and I watched them. But Percy Jackson and the Olympians, as far as the television show goes, this is just not, it's not meant for me. We'll just put it that way. It's not meant for me. I'm not the targeted demographic here, and it kind of is pretty obvious to me that I'm not, so it's not something that I will continue watching, but I think it is something that is good if you have kids that would be even remotely interested in the story of Percy Jackson. So those are my thoughts on Percy Jackson and the Olympians. I would love to know what you guys thought if you have watched the first episode. Subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.